It all began one ordinary afternoon when Natsakawa, the class gal with a reputation for her easygoing charm, was casually chatting with a friend while lounging in a seat that didn't belong to her. That seat, unfortunately for her, was usually occupied by Kagayyama, the quiet guy known for his lunch break naps. Returning from the bathroom, Kagayyama paused at the door, realizing with a twinge of annoyance that his usual retreat had been taken. He thought about just avoiding the scene altogether with a stroll down the hallway, but before he could act, Natsakawa looked up and called out to him, asking if the seat was his. Her sudden acknowledgement caught him off guard. With a brief apology, she got up, letting him reclaim his spot. As Kagayyama settled back into his usual napping position, whispers spread across the classroom. Some students casually identified him as that guy who always naps during lunch. The word stung a little. Meanwhile, Natsakawa glanced over at him with a faint blush, though he didn't seem to notice. Jealous murmurs rippled through the room. The boys speculated on how someone like Kagayyama could have even spoken to Natsakawa. Some admired her kindness, others couldn't help but reduce her appeal to superficialities, debating her figure in crude detail. Kagayyama, overhearing it all, quietly acknowledged how her looks had become the default topic of the classroom gossip. But Natsakawa wasn't deaf to it either. She snapped at the boys, clearly disgusted by their vulgarity. They scrambled away, thoroughly embarrassed. Kagayyama watched quietly, realizing that while Natsakawa might seem kind to everyone, her kindness had limits, especially when it came to creeps. Later, as her friend tried convincing her to go bowling after school, Natsakawa declined, claiming she had work. Kagayyama's phone buzzed with a message. It was from her. She asked to meet at their usual karaoke spot. He looked up. She met his gaze briefly before turning to her friend with a soft excuse. The friend teased her, suspicious of how often she was working lately, but Natsakawa brushed it off. As Kagayyama anticipated the meeting, he already knew what kind of situation awaited him, because whenever they were alone at karaoke, things always escalated in a very peculiar way. The moment they entered the private room, Natsakawa moved close to him, her breath shaky, her hands resting on his shoulders. Her eyes gleamed with excitement, and Kagayyama could feel the tension rise. The atmosphere was intense, and she wasted no time demanding what she'd been craving since the night before. But rather than anything scandalous, Kagayyama simply pulled out a USB drive and calmly inserted it into the karaoke machine. He had composed a new track for her, a high-energy intro song perfect for underground idols. As he explained the beats and arrangement, he noticed she wasn't reacting. When he looked at her, he realized she was silently crying. Before he could panic, she reached out, grabbing his hand, her eyes lit with joy. She was overwhelmed with happiness, calling him a genius. Flustered, Kagayyama tried to pull his hand back, but she wouldn't let go, teasing him for putting so much thought into her song. He tried to downplay it, but inside he wondered when she started interpreting everything so dramatically. She asked if she could try dancing to the song, and as she moved across the room in her short skirt, Kagayyama tried to focus, but her energetic steps and flashing thighs made it increasingly hard to look away. The private nature of the moment, the fact that only he could watch her like this, added a whole new layer of awkward intensity. When she finished, she turned around with a blush, asking how she did. Kagayyama avoided her gaze and gave a vague response, knowing that praising her would only encourage more teasing. She pouted and ordered more drinks, saying the dancing had made her sweat. They fell into a playful rhythm. Natsakawa exaggerated her praise, calling him a musical genius. When she mixed up Van Gogh and Mozart, Kagayyama corrected her, amused but trying not to show it. Then her tone shifted. She spoke more seriously, explaining how she had only ever done covers and how much his support meant to her. She hugged his arm, thanking him sincerely. Kagayyama froze. The softness of her body pressed against him, the sweet scent of her skin. He couldn't think straight. When he muttered something about her smell, she pulled back in alarm, worried she smelled sweaty. He blushed harder, assuring her she actually smelled nice. Embarrassed and flustered, she tried to create some distance, but in doing so she accidentally knocked over her drink, spilling it all over Kagayyama's pants. Panicking, she dropped to her knees to clean it up. Kagayyama, utterly red in the face, begged her to stop. He knew if she touched the wrong spot, things would escalate fast. Just then, the waitress walked in to deliver drinks, and caught a view of Natsakawa on her knees in front of him. Her wide-eyed blush said everything. Kagayyama tried desperately to explain it was a misunderstanding, but the waitress quietly backed out, utterly mortified. As the door closed, Kagayyama leaned back and sighed, realizing his new role as Natsakawa's personal composer was going to be anything but simple. A few days had passed since the usual school routine when Natsu, full of her usual energy, invited Kage to her house. The song they had worked on was finally complete, and now she wanted him to see the finished costume. Though Kage clearly wasn't interested, Natsu never really waited for permission. She simply told him she'd send the address later and went on her way. And so, the next scene finds Kage standing in front of her house, hesitant but already too deep to turn back. When the door opened, Natsu welcomed him in with a smile and mentioned, casually as if it was no big deal, that her mom was excited to meet him too. That bit caught Kage off guard. The idea of meeting Natsu's mom immediately sparked a mental image. Would she be a gal too? Just like her daughter? The answer came moments later. They stepped inside and sure enough, her mother made her entrance, dressed in nothing but a bra and shorts, greeting him as if she'd just returned from the beach. It was exactly what Kage had feared. Her presence screamed confidence and her outfit screamed, not very traditional. He introduced himself, trying to keep things polite, but her mom had other plans. She poked his face playfully and jumped right into conversation like they were already family. Then she grabbed his hand and fired off a barrage of questions, one after another. It was overwhelming even by Natsu's standards. Thankfully, Natsu stepped in before things got too chaotic, pulling her mom back just enough for Kage to breathe again. Strangely enough, she was the calmer one here, for once. Her mom apologized, explaining that this was the first time Natsu had brought a male friend home. Kage tried to brush it off, though it was obvious he wasn't used to this level of intensity. Then the topic shifted. Apparently, Natsu and her mom had been watching an idol livestream, and they invited Kage to join. He tried to insist that he was only there to see the costume, but the energy in that house didn't leave much room for escape. Her mom chimed in again and soon enough he found himself seated on the couch. For a moment he exhaled, finally some peace. That peace didn't last long. In the blink of an eye he found himself squished right in between Natsu and her mom. Sandwiched between a hyper gal and a barely dressed woman, he looked from one to the other and realized, this wasn't the kind of relaxing he'd signed up for. Natsu, misreading the situation entirely, pointed to the TV and talked about how great the place was, saying it was impossible to relax. Not that she knew what kind of pressure Kage was under in that exact moment. But something about her excitement, the way she jumped around while talking about idols, seemed different. Like there was more behind the energy. Her mom, watching her daughter with a soft gaze, commented on how happy Rio looked lately. It wasn't always like this. She began to explain. Before Rio became an idol, things had been rough. She'd travel an hour to dance lessons and come home too exhausted to stand. She used to light up before live shows, but for a while that spark disappeared. For 6 months she struggled. The fans didn't come. The energy wasn't there. Even someone as bright as Rio had her limits. There were nights when she came home and cried. But she didn't quit. Eventually her efforts started to pay off. Her fans began to grow. And with new songs, ones written by Kage, she began to shine again. Her mom believed this was the happiest she'd ever seen her. It was a touching story, heartfelt and real. Of course, the moment was somewhat undermined by her mom still sitting there in what was basically underwear. Without warning, she smacked Kage on the back and told him to take care of Natsu. He reacted instinctively and called her auntie. Wrong move. Her smile vanished. She grabbed him by the shirt, clearly offended. Turns out, she preferred to be called by her first name, Junko. And she made that very clear, while still holding him by the collar. Just in time, Natsu reappeared and demanded to know what her mom was doing. Later in Natsu's room the mood was calmer. She asked Kage what he thought of her room. His response was vague and Natsu, noticing his awkwardness, asked if this was his first time in a girl's room. He tried to act casual, but it was obvious he didn't know where to sit or what to do. She laid across the bed casually and told him to sit wherever. He chose the floor. Safer. That's when he noticed a small vibrating device nearby and froze. For a second the room felt very adult. But Natsu, oblivious to his panic, picked it up and explained it was just a shoulder massager. She even demonstrated. Crisis averted. Then she offered him the massager and asked if he could use it on her legs. Sometimes, she said, it's just better when someone else does it. Remembering what her mom had said earlier about how hard she worked, he stood up and agreed, just the legs, nothing more. She laid down again and teased him for being unusually cooperative. He stood there with the massager in hand, staring down at a gal lying on her bed and realized, this situation looked exactly like something out of an adult manga. She warned him not to peek up her skirt. He said he wouldn't and turned the device on. As he massaged her legs, she complimented him. His hands started sweating, not from effort but from nerves. And then, it happened. The massager slipped and landed on her skirt. She jolted and let out a loud, involuntary sound, quickly covering her mouth with a blush spreading across her face. In full panic, he tried to pull the device away, but right then the door opened. Junko stepped in. She saw the scene, her daughter on the bed, Kage hovering over her with a massager, and gave a thumbs up. Her expression was full of praise, as if to say, "Nice job, kid." Kage tried to explain. She didn't listen. And from that day on, through a series of misunderstandings, awkward accidents, and emotionally charged idle conversations, Kage officially became Natsu's personal composer. Though originally this was just supposed to be about a costume. At school, with the sun already warming the windows and everyone buzzing about their plans, Natsu leaned over to Kage and casually asked if he was planning to go to the Golden Week festival. His response was flat. He hadn't really thought about it. Naturally, that wasn't enough of an answer for Natsu, who asked why. Kage muttered something about not being able to do wotajai, the coordinated cheering and dance moves hardcore idol fans pulled off like synchronized swimmers. Natsu brushed his concern aside. It was a live house event, not an underground idol battleground. Before he could protest, she handed him a ticket like it was an invitation to a casual picnic, told him she'd be waiting at the venue, and dashed off. Her final words echoed behind her. He wouldn't stand out even if he stood there like a Jizo. That word stuck with him. Jizo? Later, curiosity got the best of him. A quick search on Google told him Jizo was a stone statue of a Buddhist guardian, known for standing still and looking serene. The comparison stung a little. The day arrived. Kage found himself standing outside the live house, clutching the ticket. The place was absolutely packed. He nearly choked when he heard the entrance fee was just 500 yen. That was way too little for the energy radiating from inside. Inside the venue, the crowd was buzzing with anticipation. He glanced at the time. Natsu's performance would be soon. Before he could mentally prepare himself, a girl appeared beside him and struck up a conversation. She seemed eccentric, too friendly, too confident. Definitely the talks to strangers in crowded places type. She asked if it was his first time. He admitted it was. She grinned and started sharing unsolicited wisdom, telling him not to overthink and to just feel everything with his soul. The advice felt more like something from a cult initiation than a concert. Kage labeled her as weird and tried to avoid eye contact. Still, she pried, asking which idol he was there for. When he said Natsakawa, her eyes lit up with curiosity. The follow-up questions started pouring in, but Kage had no interest in turning this into a personal interview. He shut down the conversation quickly. Soon after, the first group took the stage, and the audience exploded. Chants, cheers, perfectly timed moves. The whole room seemed to move as one. So this was what Natsu meant when she talked about unity. The same eccentric girl beside him gave him an impromptu explanation. The music, the idols, the fans, the calls. Everything synchronized to create a groove that filled the entire venue like a living wave. It was more than a performance, it was a collective experience. Kage observed it all quietly. Everyone looked like they were genuinely having fun. Still, yelling idol names in sync with strangers felt embarrassing. Then Natsu stepped onto the stage. The girl beside him practically screamed her name with unfiltered joy. And Natsu? She stood confidently, introducing herself to the crowd before announcing she'd be performing her original song, for the first time. The moment the music started, the crowd watched with anticipation. The choreography, crafted by Natsu in just one night, moved in perfect rhythm with Kage's composition. Every beat, every move fit together like puzzle pieces. Kage scanned the audience. They were into it, smiling, swaying, but not like before. No calls, no chants. Just quiet awe. It was probably because the song was new. The crowd didn't know where to jump in, where to yell, how to hype. That bothered him more than he expected. He closed his eyes, clenched his fists, and did something completely uncharacteristic. He shouted her name. Loud. Clear. Heads turned. And then others followed. One voice sparked a dozen more, and soon the venue echoed with fans chanting for Natsakawa. Her eyes lit up, and she glanced toward the direction of the voice that had started it all. Kage continued calling her name, and she responded with a performance that felt like it had just leveled up. By the time she finished, she looked out over the crowd, her eyes meeting his for a brief, wordless moment. It was done. Leaving the venue later, Kage walked alone, reflecting. Maybe it had been fun after all. Before he could get too lost in thought, Natsu caught up to him and hugged him from behind, playfully clinging to his back. She told him to wait up, teasing him with a new nickname, Call Master. Apparently, his impromptu cheering had left an impression. He tried to deflect it. He just got annoyed that his song wasn't getting the hype it deserved. She teased him more. Maybe he was being at tsundere? Wasn't it embarrassing? He begged her not to say that out loud, but the damage was already done. She asked how the show was. He muttered that it was, alright. Pretty hyped. She grinned. That response was creepier than anything she'd expected, but in a charming kind of way. Then she noticed something. Her hair accessory was still pinned to her costume. He pointed it out, asking if that was okay. She looked at it for a second and smiled. Look cute, she said. And just like that, the Golden Week Festival became another piece in the mosaic of their strange, chaotic, slow-burning bond, where tsundere pride clashed with gal energy, and idol music brought everything just a little closer together. Hey, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video with your friends, and also with your calculator, your fridge, your grandma's smart TV, whatever's connected to Wi-Fi. Help me hit 1,000 subs. The day after the visit to Natsu's house, the scene opens on Kage standing under the sun, broom in hand, cleaning an empty pool. He wasn't happy about it. Not even a little. Grumbling to himself, he wondered why he was stuck doing this alone. 3 hours earlier it all made sense. Back in class, during a particularly boring lecture, Kage had dozed off. The teacher, ever watchful and way too energetic for that hour of the day, caught him mid-dream. As punishment, Kage found himself sentenced to a classic after-school job, pool cleaning. And now, under the heat, surrounded by silence and concrete, he stared at the drained pool. Its vast emptiness reminded him of something, the live house. The energy, the lights, the unity. It had been fun, surprisingly fun. And now it was quiet again. He figured he wouldn't see Natsu until the next live performance, whenever that might be. Gripping the broom, he muttered to himself with a tired scowl. What was he even doing here? Alone? Or so he thought. A voice called out from above, cheerful and familiar. Natsu stood at the edge of the pool, arms crossed, eyes bright. Apparently, she had also fallen asleep in class and had earned the same fate. So now, pool cleaning was a duo activity. She slipped down into the pool with practiced ease as if this was something they did all the time. Seeing her eager to clean, Kage noticed something different about her. She looked more reliable. Maybe it was the afterglow of the live show. Maybe she was just evolving. But 1 hour later, all that reliability was shouting in frustration. The pool still looked untouched and Natsu had hit her limit. She groaned, dramatically dragging her feet, asking what they should do next. That's when her eyes landed on a nearby water pipe, and the mischief practically sparked in her smile. Without hesitation she grabbed the hose. Kage didn't even need to hear the words. He knew exactly where this was going. And he was right. In seconds, a blast of water soaked him from head to toe. Battle mode activated. With a straight face, he picked up the nearest bucket of water and launched it back at her, full force. Natsu was drenched. Not one to back down, she retaliated immediately. Water splashed everywhere, bouncing off concrete, hair, uniforms. Within seconds, the punishment had turned into an all-out water war. And then, of course, came the witness. Nanako happened to pass by the pool just in time to see her two friends in the middle of what looked like chaos. What uniforms, laughing, slipping? It was hard to tell if this was cleaning or some strange club activity. Natsu, catching her breath, turned to Kage and suggested they might need to head home before things got worse. He took a step forward, and his foot found a slippery patch. In the next moment, gravity took over, and Natsu landed directly on top of him. There was a pause. Awkward. Close. Eyes wide. Natsu scrambled up and asked if he was okay, teasing him about being unexpectedly bold. Then, without much shame at all, she flapped the edge of her skirt, announcing that she was soaked all the way to her underwear. Kage froze. His brain stalled. She repeated it, louder, as if clarity was key. Yes, even her underwear. He responded flatly that, yes, he could hear her just fine, thank you very much. Nanako, still observing from a distance with all the energy of a tired older sister, finally stepped in. She asked what exactly they were doing down there. Natsu casually explained they were cleaning. Nanako, unimpressed, pointed out that the entire back half of the pool hadn't even been touched. Then calmly she added that Natsu's clothes were practically see-through and she should hurry up and change or she'd catch a cold. Natsu huffed and told Nanako she sounded like a mom. Meanwhile, Kage decided that maybe it was time to go home too. Later, after Natsu had changed and they exchanged their goodbyes, the pool was quiet again. Kage returned to the classroom to change as well, peeling off his wet uniform. That's when he noticed. His underwear was soaked too. He paused. Blinked. Wait. If his underwear was soaked back then. His eyes widened as realization struck like lightning. Did that mean Natsu was also going commando? If you enjoyed diving into this manga with me, don't forget to smash that like button. It helps more than you know.